I'm just finishing pruning out some of the dead growth on this weeping Norway spruce that's accumulated over the last 10 years or so. And we're not going to cover that in this video. I did one recently on a weeping larch, same exact scenario where we pruned out that dead growth. So you can take a look at that video if you're interested in that. But it got me to thinking that I could share some of the different ideas, landscaping concepts that you can do at the corner of a house. That's always been one of the more challenging areas for me when I've helped out different customers over the years is, what do you put at the corner of a house? And I think we often limit ourselves on how we can plant different plant material because we put the edging or create the bed too close to the house foundation. What we've done on this bed, and we're going to give you an overview from some different elevations, I've actually just created a much more long bed coming away from the corner of the house, as well as a pathway that cuts through this area. And anytime that you can go through your landscape beds with a pathway, it just totally opens it up to a different, different character, different flavor, because it invites you into your gardens, into your beds. Okay, as we come up to the corner here, this is a Prince of Wales juniper. We're not going to really talk about that today. That's another video completely where we're going to do some pruning. We're actually going to move this sprinkler head here. It's just getting too close to the canopy of that foliage. And we've got some Taylor junipers there, so hit subscribe. That'll be a video coming up. But this corner bed, if you take a look there, we've got the boulder edging, and I had to kind of lift that up. It started to become almost unnoticeable. It was a pretty quick project. Just dig that shovel in, pop them up another 6 inches, and now it's going to hold that mulch in place. Here we've got some rock that I think it always adds a nice contrast to mix in the rock with the mulch edging. Keep that rock on the high side. I try to separate it with that boulder, riprap, or rock so they don't contaminate each other. And I might have to lift those rocks up as well. But let's start here at the edge of the bed talking about the plant material. This is Copper Curls Peking Lilac. Initially, my idea on this bed, I was going to go ahead and put that circle that you see in the distance, that art form, I was going to put that as an opening into the back area. But with this ash tree here, this lilac, I thought maybe it was just a little bit too much going on, so I never did it. The Peking lilac has a really nice orange exfoliating bark. It's one of the Japanese tree lilac varieties, the reticulatus species. So far, I'm not overly impressed with this lilac. I've had a fair amount of dead branches in here. It's now starting to finally do a little bit of flowering. I think if we make sure that we keep these green ash branches pruned back, give it the room it needs to develop, we'll eventually start probably lifting these branches up too. It could end up being just, one of the more perfect trees for this area. Some other ideas for small upright trees, if you like that, at the corner, as I've got here. The ivory silk lilac is a really nice upright tree. The gladiator flowering crab, that's a new one on the scene. Has a purple foliage, dark purple berry, a pink flower, but it's an upright crab apple that would also work beautifully in a location like this. Here's a view from a higher elevation, actually from our deck. You can kind of see how the plant material is fitting in there. We're going to be keeping that Montgomery spruce pruned. You can see the lilac and the ash, how they're blending together. And we'll give you a view of this from the ladder cam. Let's see if we can get up to a higher point. Sometimes that gives us a different perspective of how things are going to look. You can see how far it's coming out and just how much more room it gives you for that different plant material. I love how the mulch and the rock blend together there. It's just something about having the two in combination in landscapes that it's just one of my favorite things to do. And if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm all about curves in the landscape and contour or elevation changes. One of the first things I did on this bed is I put in these large boulders here, and that created the effect that I was looking for. Not only added some contouring to that bed, it created a natural sitting area, and it's just something about having a small little accent wall like that gives you a different depth, a different dimension in your landscape beds. So certainly that's a good starting point if you're looking to create some different ideas, some different looks for that corner landscaping. If you like the idea of a smaller upright conifer like this Montgomery spruce, the arborvitae is a good choice, the holmstrup, the DeGroots arborvitae. A little bit different shape on them, but they're going to stay compact enough to fit in an area like this. Troutman juniper and Medora juniper. These are another two really good choices if you want that compact upright conifer. Those 3 potentillas that you see in a row, they're gold star potentilla. Starting to get a little bit crowded in there, but once they start blooming, blend together, I actually really like how they look yet. You know, they've got several years before we have to maybe decide we're going to either transplant them out of there. And then this open area in the front, we've had various perennials that have died out in there. I kind of call that a little playground, and that's one of the reasons I like to keep it mulch. You know, you can trade out different perennials really easily. It's not so easy in rock, so that creates an area that if my wife and I discover a plant we like, we can go ahead and we can just plop that in there, change things out. Our ground cover here is cranesbill, or it's a natural low-growing geranium, and it does get a nice little flower. It's a perfect choice for a part sun or even a full shade type area. This has established itself just naturally. Initially it was just one plant. I've got a little spruce tree here that's come up on its own, just naturally seeded, and I'll probably just keep that in there for now, just keep it in a little bit of a smaller, tight shape just for a unique addition. Eventually we'll have to transplant it out. And again, where we started, that weeping Norway spruce, it just has done a really nice job in here blending in with this pathway, starting to cover up that area right there a little bit. That's easy to keep trimmed back, you know, even just with a string trimmer, weed whip. And there's that path I'm talking about. Allows us to kind of enter that bed as we're going into other areas of our yard. And we'll spin around and give you the other look. Yeah, so I just love using pathways. This one happens to be in rock. Here's another one very similar, but this one's in a mulch bed, so you can do it either way. This is superstar spirea. I don't find it all that super. Not my favorite spirea. Initially, I had 3 of them planted in this area, and that's how landscapes change over time. Certain things die out, just don't perform. Behind us here, we've got bloomerang lilac, and bloomerang is considered an ever-blooming lilac, where you'll get the initial surge in the spring, that May, June area, where it's going to be in full bloom, and then later in the season you'll continue to get sporadic, a lighter bloom, but it's still quite showy, quite fragrant. I've had to rejuvenate these once now where they just almost get too big, too shaggy. I've got a video here you can certainly look at to see how I pruned that back a little bit, almost, you know, down to 18 inches, and it came back just spectacular. So it's a good candidate for rejuvenation if you need to. Our Montgomery spruce is kind of starting to crowd this area for the natural bench, but what a great addition to be able to enjoy your setting, your landscape, by creating not only that retaining accent wall, but just creating a natural bench. And before we let you go, I want to show you just a really unique bird bath that I've been moving around to different locations, and it's never just felt right until today. As I finished pruning up the dead growth out of that weeping Norway, I thought, well, this would be maybe the perfect location for this bird bath. You know, I just love the contrast that it has with that rusted column and that stainless steel or chrome top. I don't think the birds like this quite as much as I do, but I think this is going to be a really, really good location. The sun won't heat up that metal as much for the birds, and it's also in an area, easy access to water, our hoses. So yeah, look at that. I think that's just an absolutely perfect spot. All right then, I hope I was able to give you some new ideas for landscaping the corner of your home. Thanks for stopping by Garden Hike. I appreciate it. We'll see you again next video.